Inertia and REPA jointly present Professor Iyer's talk show, Future of Energy, India Vision 2022. India's first talk show on energy and power. Co-partners MTU On-Site Energy and BS Group, Associate Partner BHEL. Supported by Jindal Power Limited and Patel Engineering Limited. Segment Partner Green Brilliance Energy, a Falcon Media production.
Welcome to the show, Future of Energy, India Vision on Zee Business. This Inertia show and a very special issue brought to you here on hydropower, and I have the best that you can get in this country. On my left is Shri Anil Razan, former Secretary Power, Government of India. Left of him is another man who has actually been responsible for the development secretary, and it is S.C. Sharma, President Hydro of Jindal Steel and Power. In fact, Jindal Power Limited now. And on my right is Shri K. Ravi Kumar, the former Managing Director and Chairman of BHEL, and who is heading the Abhijit Group. And we have none other than Mr. Nimish Patel, the Director on Board of Patel Engineering. India is one of the leading hydropower companies and going strong. On my extreme right is Mr. T.C. Arora, Director of Toshiba India Limited, who has also seen major hydro developments in the country. On my extreme left is R.K. Srivastava, Director Kirloskar Brothers Limited, and heading a company which has a lot to do with water and the power of water. For this we begin today's discussion. To throw it up, first let me throw some figures. Today we are at 39 gigawatt out of the 182 gigawatt of installed capacity we have. 39 gigawatt is for hydropower, and that is only 21% of the share in the entire energy mix, and that is much lower than the previous plan where we saw share of hydro was about 25%. Razan sir, why this fall? What are the basic reasons?
It is obvious. You see, we began with a fair amount of hydropower development in the post independence stage. There was a stage when we had 50% hydro power in our system. That was the time when we were building the large dams, the Pakra, the Hirakud, the other dams in the south, west. But then came the environmental issues and the debate whether how bad our storage reservoirs, because all these were multi-purpose projects by and large. We started the run-of-the-river projects. The run-of-the-river projects ran into their own problems of geology, particularly in the Himalayan geology, where the rock structure was relatively new. There were more uncertainties in development. The access to some of these areas were even more difficult than some of the lower areas we were building, where we were building the erstwhile projects. So the project completion time started coming to somewhere around 10 years. We must also understand that water and water power, in the wisdom of the constitution makers, is a state subject.
That's right.
So we also had a cycle of a state wanting, giving a clearance for a particular project, an elected system, that state, that elected government moving out, and in the process of the compensation issues and rehabilitation, resettlement issues, a lot of people who were beneficiaries at one stage got an additional set of beneficiaries who had acquired the age of qualification to become beneficiaries, thereby increasing the project costs. There were a host of issues which started slowing down hydro projects, and meanwhile the country was desperately needing power. So the thrust on quicker finishing thermal projects began. And that's how today we are in that situation where the hydro element that is being added, which is a very vital element to the whole program, is much slower as compared to its thermal counterpart, where projects can be completed easily in 3 to 4 years.
Right. Ravi Kumar Saab now, how here we can change the situation? We will further slid, it seems, in even the 12th plan, because hydro needs a little bit of an advanced planning. So unless we do something drastic.
First, we must have good geologists. The problem is coming in geology in most of the places. Whenever it is not coming in the electromechanical part, it is more coming on the dam part of it. Secondly, most of our power plants potential is in Arunachal Pradesh, and private players are not willing to go that much to Arunachal Pradesh because of certain issues. And if you see recently, I had been to Nepal, there is very good potential for hydel generation if transmission facilities to India are available. See, if you see Bhutan, we have constructed a lot of power plants in Bhutan. See, 40% to 50% of the GDP comes from sale of electricity to India. So the same thing I told the Nepal government also, that it is possible that their sale could be as high. Secondly, we have to improve the existing power stations. We must go for micro and mini hydel stations, which can also contribute to distributed power.
Here comes the point. Sharma ji, will you throw light? आप बताएंगे हमें कि ये डेवलपर्स को क्या मुश्किल हो रही है हाइड्रो पावर डेवलप करने में?
You see, hydropower is a very cheap source of energy. In the 50,000 megawatt initiative, which was given by the at the behest of the Prime Minister initiative way back in 2003, and almost about 162 schemes were put forward for development. Now, under the 50,000 megawatt initiative, 27,000 megawatt in Arunachal Pradesh. Coming back to your question, that what developer is looking. You see, in the northeast, particularly in Arunachal Pradesh, the biggest problem today is the infrastructure. The projects have been already allotted, about 40,000 megawatt to 132 developers. There is no dearth of developers. There is no dearth of people going over there in all these situations. But going over there, particularly when you have to set up a power plant, you need roads for the equipment to travel, for the materials, cement, steel. That is a must. Recently, Trans Arunachal Highway and other district connectivity has also been initiated. Now, with these initiatives, if we can bring out the efficiency in the infrastructure development, definitely the hydro can match the thermal.
So we will just discuss after this short break the chances of reducing the time period of 4 to 5 years. We are right back with you. Don't go away. Back with you, my friends, on the discussion. We left at the last note. Now, I want here Nimish Bhai to come, Nimish Patel ji, because you are one of the biggest developers in hydro. You've been in Bhutan, as Ravi Kumar ji has said, you also have been there, and you are definitely interested in Nepal and other markets. What, in your opinion, I again push that question, Sharma Saab says we are already faltering by 10,000 megawatt. Results are in front of us that we have come down on the hydro mix, whereas we were aiming at 40% once upon a time, 60-40 thermal hydro mix. We come down to 21%. What, as a developer, you feel? What are the 1, 2, 3?
There's a lot of things that can be done, there's no doubt, to increase or to help the hydropower sector, and some of these are things that cannot be done overnight, and some things can be done quicker. For example, a developer takes anywhere, I don't think there's a single developer in the country who has finished his approval process, DPR preparation approval process, in less than 4 to 5 years. I don't think there's a single case. There are cases that are 20 years, but the norm is definitely 4 to 5 years. This is a period that that doesn't require the building of roads and infrastructure. It takes definitely a lot more time. Certain approvals today, I think, must be looked at again, whether they are required in the current scenario, because this sector was originally only open to the government. Now it's been open to the private sector, and my theme generally is that if someone is going to deploy money, then he must do it responsibly. Have regulators, but the approval processes can be shortened by at least a year or two, I feel. Right. So this basically a quick help would be that.
I just want Razdan Saab to just come into this. What is happening here? 4 to 5 years, according to Nimish Patel, and his experiences and Patel Engineering, or even Jindal, they say so much time, infrastructure bottleneck, so much time required for clearances. What is happening?
Well, I think the points that the developers have taken are very, very pertinent and relevant. I would take the liberty of coming back to the hydro policy per se, which I had the privilege of piloting as Power Secretary, and even the 50,000 megawatt as Joint Secretary Hydro in the Ministry. I would say that first and foremost, we've got to understand that we've got to make the local people stakeholders in the project. What has happened at present, I feel, is that the hydro projects are being given out as negotiable instruments to whoever gives the highest amount of free power. What does the local area benefit? Then the resistance starts with the local people. What did I get out of the project? So the hydro policy had tried to put across at least 2% of the sales in perpetuity out of that plant to go into that local area for its development or for its own revenues. I personally would have been very happy with 5% or even more, because the very concept of free power was distress power, and 15% was really the figure meant for causing distress. Okay, distress, we can say now today, is converted into kind of a spending grant for the host state, but we must say that we set aside 2 to 5% for the local area for its development in perpetuity. This will accelerate people's enthusiasm to ensure early acceptance of that project, which will increase its revenues. That was my philosophy. Secondly, I think the Environment Ministry, the other ministries, they all must, as I said, when you decide upon something as the Prime Minister's initiative or a national policy, which can only be taken after everybody has been consulted, it should be accorded the highest priority. And we must rework the time frames to see that all clearances are given in the shortest possible time. Then the other issue is, I think, project management. Project management by and large has been very poor also in hydro projects. It has probably started improving now with the private sector coming in, because his own money is on the table. And because time and cost overruns have in the past, I think, benefited some of the project staff as well as the contractors. We don't want that to happen, that somebody takes L1 and then extends the project life to recover more money out of it, and ultimately it may become H1 in terms of present cost of money. So the other issue is geologists, as Mr. Ravi Kumar said. Geologists, I maintain, are the core of hydro projects, because you have to deal with geology if you want run-of-the-river projects or even other projects. You must understand what is the rock condition going to be, even if you're going to pass a 30-kilometer tunnel through it, or how is it going to behave as water is impounded around it. The last point I wish to make is that this century is going to be a century of water. And I think no country can be very strong, particularly a heavily populated country like ours, if it does not have a water policy. We cannot do away with storage systems. We must develop more and more storages, of course, with full compensation and a better quality of life to whoever is displaced. But we have to have a relook at storage projects. They must come up wherever they can come up, because that is our only insurance against droughts, and for better, I think it also buttresses the agriculture, as the Bhakra project has done in North India. It also, I think, provides larger peaking power, because the run-of-the-river projects is a very short duration power availability. So we've got to relook at the hydropower development in its entirety, and I think water and water preservation and conservation has to be at the root of it. You have to certainly provide the infrastructure for a developer to go there. You just can't mark a hydro site on a relief map of India and say, look here, this project is allotted to you, this is allotted to you. That will be just a mock exercise.
Yes.
At this point, we take a break and we return back to discuss why we have a skewed logic of treating only projects up to 25 megawatt in hydro as renewable, and the rest does not look like renewable on paper. We're right back with you. Welcome back. So, beginning the entire discussion, back again on one fundamental. Projects up to 25 megawatt, which fall under the ambit of the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, become renewable energy projects, in the country, whereas the larger hydro projects, I would say medium and large, beyond that capacity, which are in the ambit of the Ministry of Power India, are not treated and are not given renewable benefits. So I would like to play devil's advocate here. A hydro is a hydro, whether small or big, or large or medium? Why all of that is not renewable? Sharma ji, आप क्या कहेंगे इसमें?
In our country, we have a potential of almost about 94,000 megawatt
For pump storage.
for pump storage. And presently, we have about 4,000 megawatt developed only,
So
including Tata
that is a
Power.
massive potential
Yeah.
waiting to
And
happen.
And it's a very viable option. It has taken a lot of time to tell to the stakeholders that this power is the real peaking power
For the country.
for the country. Because when you need the power, this power will
It's
be
immediately available.
And you see, it is a recycling in a storage scheme. If 1000 megawatt is going down, and in the non-peaking hour 1000 megawatt is going up, you are not generating 1000, but when the peak is needed, you are generating 2000 megawatt.
Exactly.
So without going into the fiscal benefits of that, you are directly, giving a very cheap power to the grid. So pumped storage is the need of the day today in our country. We must develop the pump storage schemes. Once the time of the day tariff comes, the cheap power will be available in the night. In the evening, the peaking power is made costly by the regulator. Naturally, there will be the economy of scale also will come into play, because people will
pump
not
storage.
leave their heaters or the air conditioners, because it will be a very costly power. At the same time, the reliability and the quality of the power will also be available.
See, the devil lies, as you said, you want to be a devil's advocate all the time. The devil lies in putting the proper price of power if you want people to use it more efficiently.
Right. What you're saying is effectively anything that is available cheap, free, is a dangerous commodity.
Dangerous, and when it is scarce, you must price this accordingly so that people use it more efficiently.
Right. They value it. In fact. Now, continuing the discussion, regarding return back to Bhutan, excluding Bhutan, who seems to be the only friend India has in the SAARC region today. Why this 10,000 megawatt also? The policy was going slow, and we probably are just reaching the 2,000 megawatt over the next couple of years. And now I think that Sankosh project of 4,000 will take, storage is coming. It seems that India almost, in this case of Bhutan is, because we could not develop our project, so we are depending by 10,000 megawatt kahin se aa jaye. And the other thing is, we are not doing the same thing with Nepal in the same pace. We are moving with a little bit of skepticism, some level of work with Myanmar, but we are not having a very concerted strategy.
In fact, it was part of my strategy that we provide at least 3 exit points from Nepal. You see, Bhutan has been very proactive and supportive in implementing
biggest friend in
projects.
the region for us.
Well, no, but they are all friends. They are all friends. They are all
You
friends.
say all our friends.
They are all friends, but one has been moving a
One
little.
has been a little bit more friendly.
No. He has been acting in greater self-interest also, because he believes in the greatest happiness of his people. He is getting so much revenue out of power,
Yeah, almost
and he has been
50% of
able
the
to
GDP is
implement.
driving.
So you see, India is willing, but my view is that yes, let the private sector go. If the projects are put out, the market lies in India.
See, there are 96 schemes and almost 94,000 megawatt. When you look at the West, the nuclear and pump storage go hand in hand. And if we are looking at nuclear to be developed, notwithstanding the current views, I think pump storage should be given more importance. Because it takes time to develop, and it also going to be happening in another 15-20 years, the nuclear. So nuclear, and you can't really ramp down the nuclear.
That's right.
You can ramp down the other. So during that time, the cheaper power will be available for the public.
Yeah. So coming to Srivastava sir, in such a crisis, 2 points I want you to answer. One is the criticality of going to pump storages, great necessity for that. And second is, why not look at canal heads, smaller microhydral irrigation, which are much easier, like the state of Haryana has successfully done it. Why not do it?
I think this pump storage system, which is a reversible pump turbine, and pumping is also possible and power generation is also possible. But I think because of the environmental issues and various clearances, this kind of projects are not moving much. As far as mini hydels are concerned or small hydro projects are coming, I think that is going in big way. Right now, lot of people are doing it, but it's not successful. Potentially they are almost for 80,000 megawatt. We are anywhere near to that. So anyway, the initiatives have been taken by the government. There is encouragement, but still we are far from the successful generation.
No, I want here Nimish bhai to come.
From a private developer's point of view, when you say renewable, most people are looking for a better PPA, and that's
Okay.
why the 25 threshold is not convenient, if you will. They are all renewable, and I think if the thresholds are increased, you will see some of the medium-sized projects also getting developed. So if Rajdhan Sab took it from 5 to 25,
Somebody has to take it from
Someone
25 to
has to
350. So on that note, that hydropower projects must get the renewable benefits even up to 300, 350 or 400 megawatt, and that we should aggressively follow. That we must bring back storage projects, that we must have substantial pump storage, and that hydro is definitely a multiple benefit, I would say, model for India, because it does not only generate power but also has added on benefits like irrigation and several additional benefits. Because if we can do it for our people, then we save a lot of revolution, a lot of crisis, a lot of problems. On that note, I say goodbye and wait for our next episode, which comes on the demand side management and smart grid. Bye for now. Thanks to all my people over here.
Inertia and REPA jointly present Professor Iyer's talk show, Future of Energy, India Vision 2022. India's first talk show on energy and power. Co-partners MTU On-Site Energy and BS Group, associate partner BHEL. Supported by Jindal Power Limited and Patel Engineering Limited. Segment partner Green Brilliance Energy, a Falcon Media production.